Here are 5 things you can do right now to improve your bearded dragon's life. What's up, lords and ladies? Welcome back to another video on this channel. So, you want to improve your bearded dragon's life. You clicked on this video in hopes that I'm going to give you some remedy that's just gonna cure everything that your bearded dragon might be going through. Now, let me just point out by saying that every single bearded dragon is different, so they're gonna require different needs, and there's so many different things you can do to improve your bearded dragon's quality of life. But today I decided to give you my top 5 that I think would work instantly with any bearded dragon. So with that being said, let's start with number 1. The very first thing I would advise any bearded dragon or even reptile keeper to do is to rearrange its enclosure. Now, rearranging its enclosure doesn't necessarily mean switching the hot side to the other side or just switching one rock and putting a different kind of rock. You really want to strategize the way you are arranging its enclosure. I'm assuming you got your bearded dragon when it was just a baby bearded dragon, and as it got older, it has required different things to climb on, or it has required different things in its enclosure. So you want to customize different type of stuff that you introduce in the enclosure to your bearded dragon's needs. So this can actually be taking things out and keeping it a little bit more simple, or adding more things that your bearded dragon likes to climb on, or even downsizing the enclosure. Sometimes we think our bearded dragon is going to grow up to be this huge bearded dragon that is going to require so much space, and we realize that our bearded dragon doesn't really utilize most of the space and is not really benefiting by having such a big enclosure. Trust me, it can happen, and it's your responsibility as the keeper to make the right call. You might have to get a bigger enclosure, or you might even have to get a size smaller enclosure, depending on the bearded dragon. Arranging your bearded dragon's enclosure is important to do it every so often, maybe once a year or maybe every other year, depending on how your bearded dragon is growing. You might want to add new rocks into the bearded dragon's enclosure, that way they can climb on it and file down their nails. Or you might want to take out decor that you might have introduced early on of you getting a bearded dragon, and you started to notice your bearded dragon doesn't really use it, and it's just causing your bearded dragon not to be able to move and function properly inside of its enclosure. So you definitely want to rearrange your bearded dragon's enclosure to improve the quality of life it has. Now, the second thing that is important for you to do to improve your bearded dragon's lifestyle is to gut load the crickets. Now, I'm sure many of you have already heard gut load your insects, gut load your crickets before giving it to any of your reptiles, but it's very important to not only gut load them, but to give them some sort of meal that is super healthy. That way your bearded dragon also eats it, because oftentimes you see it sometimes in pet shops that you just have a piece of carrot inside of the container and it's like, oh, I'm gut loading my crickets. And it's like, no, take the proper measures to actually prepare something nutritious for your crickets. That way your bearded dragons later on eat it. And you definitely want to be creative with it. What I like to do is give whatever my bearded dragons don't eat to the crickets, but also add different types of vegetables as well, and maybe even add a little bit of rapashi grub pie into the mix. That way my bearded dragons eat pretty much what the crickets are eating. Now, the third thing that would improve your bearded dragon's life is to have a proper sleep cycle. Now, what does this mean? We have 24 hours in a day, and 12 of those hours should be for your bearded dragon to just be basking in the light with the UVB as well as the proper heat. But then you want complete darkness at night. So this means if you have your bearded dragon in a living room with the lights on, or if you have your bearded dragon in a bedroom with the TV on, it might not be ideal for your bearded dragon. It might be interrupting the bearded dragon's sleep. So if you are going to be keeping your bearded dragon somewhere where you are also living, you want to maybe cover your bearded dragon with a blanket or give your bearded dragon some complete darkness in the enclosure. That way your bearded dragon gets a proper sleep and could wake up the next day full of energy, as well as not be super lethargic throughout the day. So giving your bearded dragon the proper sleep is super important so your bearded dragon can live a long, healthy life. Now, the fourth thing that you can do to improve your bearded dragon's life is to take them out so they can do some form of exercise. Now, usually when we take our bearded dragon out, we want them to just be chilling on our shoulder. And although that's important to bond with your bearded dragon, you also want to give your bearded dragon a safe space that they could just roam around and just be kind of free. As well as you kind of want to keep a timer on, that way you don't forget that your bearded dragon is just roaming the house, and that you can give your bearded dragon as well as some time in the enclosure to get all of the UVB as well as the proper heat. But you want to give your bearded dragon some time outside of the enclosure that they could stretch their leg, they could go explore. And what I like to do is actually go and get something to hide certain treats in there. That way they can be a little bit more interactive and maybe start looking and hunting for food while they're outside of the enclosure. So you definitely want to provide some form of exercise outside of the bearded dragon enclosure. That way they can move and they're not just stuck in one area or in one branch. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there is so many different things that you can do to improve your bearded dragon's life. But I needed to put this one on the list for this video, and that is to keep your bearded dragon clean. Now, I'm sure you know the importance of keeping yourself clean. You know, it's good for you, it's good for your skin, you won't get sick. But the same thing goes for your bearded dragon. If you feed your bearded dragon in a really dirty enclosure some food, it can start to eat some of the poop or some of the urates that are in the enclosure, and that is not good for your bearded dragon. That is just a recipe for disaster to introduce bacteria as well as infection into your bearded dragon system. So you always want to make sure that the area that you feed your bearded dragon is clean. Now, if your bearded dragon enclosure is dirty, and that's normally where you feed your bearded dragon, this might be a great opportunity to take your bearded dragon out, feed them outside of the enclosure, and then later on go in there and start cleaning that enclosure, and make sure you disinfect everything and make sure it is spotless. You don't always have to keep your bearded dragon's enclosure spotless, because let's face it, bearded dragons, they love to poop on everything. Like, the minute you clean is the minute they poop. But you definitely want to make sure that you have a cleaning routine and you stick to it. So hopefully this video helped anyone out there who is new or experienced in keeping bearded dragons. And if you're doing this all and you're checking it off and you're like, yes, I did this, I did this, I did this, then you are on the right track to keep your bearded dragon living for a very long time. And if you are not doing this, you better start doing it, man, because your bearded dragon deserves it. But with that being said, hopefully this video helped anyone out there. But with that being said, I'm Lord of Lion. Keep the blood pumping, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.
You gotta hit that notification, hit that notification, hit that notification button, baby. You gotta hit that notification, hit that notification, hit that notification button, baby. You gotta hit it right, hit all night, hit it right.